Hey guys, it's Nick. Welcome to another episode of T-Minus 365. In today's episode, I'm going to be giving you guys some guidance for your contracts for new commerce experience. The number one concern with new commerce is liability, and I've heard a lot of outreach about a boilerplate contract, something like that, that you could use for your customers to help protect yourself here with these particular contracts. So in this video, I'm going to go over some high-level guidelines here that I would have within these contracts, just to make sure you have these clauses outlined. I want to preface this though by saying that I'm not a lawyer and I have not had this vetted by a lawyer. So these are just my recommendations based off my fundamental understanding of new commerce. So definitely take that with a heavy consideration here when you're walking through these things. The other thing to note here as I'm going through the various terms and clauses that I would include, just know that I'll have this up on my blog as well too, so you don't have to take screenshots or try to write all this down. Just know that it will be available and you can start to copy and paste really if you really wanted to. The first thing that I'm going to get into here is the subscription terms. So essentially here we have the customer may subscribe to Microsoft licensing on a monthly, annual, multi-term commitment basis. This is just outlining all the term commitments, and you could choose whether or not you're going to support some of these as far as any of that you make available to the customer. And the other consideration here is that not all licenses have monthly terms. So you want to outline that just because there's a lot of SKUs here today, like the add-on plans or even Exchange Online Plan 1, that only has an annual commitment term. So you want to make sure you outline that with the customer. Partner will advise the customer which licenses are available in respective terms. You're going to be the advisor there. It's another value add to you, being able to demystify the new complexities we have now with this licensing model. Applicable billing changes to accommodate new subscriptions or change requests will be reflected on the next billing cycle. This is just simply to accommodate for mid-month increments here and the prorations that might come with that. No matter what term commitment you're on, that could be the annual paid monthly, it could be annual prepaid, it could be monthly. All of those will prorate mid-month and co-terminate at the end. Monthly, annual, multi-year subscriptions may be prorated on a monthly basis if appropriate or available. So this is again, if you choose the paid monthly option there, they will prorate mid-month and convert. Even if you're on an annual commitment, your holistic quantity just goes up. Monthly term subscription NC are billed at a 20% premium over annual and multi-year of the same product type. This is a big one here that you definitely need to include here. Make sure they are under the understanding that if they go monthly for the additional flexibility or flexibility around cancellations, that there is that 20% premium pricing that's going to be baked in. Next here, I know this is a wall of text, so I'm really just trying to speak to it though and give you all the bullet points that I would want to include on the contract. Seat counts can be adjusted upward on any commitment term, but if more than 72 hours have elapsed since the order was placed or the subscription was renewed, seat counts cannot be decreased until the renewal of the subscription. This is just the new terms with Microsoft outlining the fact that when you go up in seat counts, you have a 72-hour window, or when you start your subscription, you have a 72-hour window. You could get more stringent than that just to say that you don't allow for any decrements or cancellations throughout the life of the term as soon as you get into that commitment. Which is a little bit more strict, but obviously you have a little bit more of a black and white scenario with less confusing terminology for yourself and the customer. Seats added mid-month will be prorated, co-terminated. I touched on this as well too. Mixing monthly and annual commitments of the same product may result in different renewal dates based off the purchase date. This is a good one to highlight because you could have an annual contract and a monthly contract of the same product for one customer, meaning there's two separate subscriptions. Depending on when you upgrade into those or depending on when you purchase those, they could have different renewal dates. And the customer needs to know that and understand that their commitment might be separate on a per subscription basis. New subscription purchase will potentially have unique renewal date, just coupling off that for some more clarity. Customers can need to pay the full term for licenses included in monthly, annual, or multi-year subscriptions. This is a big deal. This is what's helping you reduce your liability here. They are on the hook for those subscriptions no matter what the term, and that's kind of starting to transfer your liability as well too. Transferring the customer subscription to another partner is not supported until the end of the subscription term, so essentially no change of channel activity even through mergers and acquisitions. Microsoft hasn't come out with a definitive clause on this just yet. but this is something that as of right now you cannot transfer midterm. You have to wait till the term is over before you can transfer the ownership to another MSP or another indirect provider, even if you're working with a distributor. Any decrements made upon the renewal for monthly commitments during the middle of the month will not be reflected until the next billing cycle. This is just simply saying that because there's obviously all this complexity now with renewal dates, it could be that you invoice out on the first of the month and they make seat changes here upon renewal, and that's not reflected until the next invoicing period that you have, likely out of your PSA tool. So just compensating for the fact that they may have prorated decrements that go on to the next billing cycle, but may not reflect in the month of which they requested those seats to be decremented as well too. So decrements made at the renewal may result in prorated credit, which will reflect on the next billing cycle. That's just a continuation here, just referencing that you will get some money back if you decrement mid-month for the delta between whatever your seat count was at to what it's now at today. Subscription cancellation, this is another heavy section of your contract that you would want to include. Seat-based subscription of any term length can be canceled, but only within the first 72 hours of the term. So again, this is another scenario in which you may choose to say that you just can't cancel. You may be more strict on that, but you do technically have that 72-hour window. So the other coupling piece to that is that you will be fully committed for the remainder of the term. You're financially obligated as the customer, and there's no refund for any unused portion, meaning that if you have 6 seats and only 3 of them are being used, they're financially liable for those full 6 seats because you are too as the MSP. Any decrements to the subscription must be made upon renewal, so just noting that you have to do decrements upon that date if it's past that 72-hour window. Increments made to the subscription midterm have 72 hours before they can be reversed. And this is, again, if you're in an annual commitment, you do an increment midterm, you have 72 hours to revert those changes if you don't need those licenses, or else you're going to be committed to that increment for the remainder of your term, because they do co-terminate. So then you'll receive this prorated refund if it's inside the 72-hour window. This is another reason, again, you're getting really into the weeds here with the 72-hour concept. You could choose, again, to just say there's no decrements, cancellations. And increments, if you choose not to have that, you won't necessarily receive a refund. And then early termination requires full payment of the term as well too. So just another protection there against customers wanting to leave. Next one here is just on renewals here. I think it's important that you mention that you're going to notify the customer XX and X days, meaning 30, 60, or 90, 60, 30 days, 30, 14, 7 days. You can choose, depending on how you want to operationalize around this and how much heads up you want to give your customer before this renews. But the key piece here is that it does auto-renew, so you do have to get in any changes to that quantity there before that 72-hour window elapses, because then you're going to be locked in for a whole nother term. And monthlies, that's not as big of a deal, but obviously with annuals, that's a huge deal because you're locked in for the full year. So I generally think that you're going to create a Microsoft Addendum to your MSA, not necessarily bake this into your MSA, just because there's obviously unique considerations here specific to Microsoft. So you just want to say that your addendum will automatically renew on an annual basis upon the annual commitments, but even at monthlies, you still want to revisit this contract every year just to make sure, and maybe you add a clause about 30 days notice before the customer can, basically exit that ongoing addendum. The monthly subscriptions, just pointing out that they will automatically renew each month upon the renewal date. This could be different per subscription as well too. Decrements made after the first of the month may not reflect on the invoice till the next billing period. We touched on this again, but just referencing that as far as the renewals goes, whenever you hit that, especially around the monthly subscriptions now. Customer has 72 hours from the renewal date to make any seat adjustments or cancel the renewal. We touched on this as well too, but this is your only window now in order to change those before you are re-upped into the new commitment as well. The last one here is just related to pricing here. So obviously pricing for Microsoft is subject to change. We already know that with the March 1st price increases that are coming. And then you have your annual and multi-year commitments allowing for price locking during the duration of the term. So this is to say that if you get onto those, anything that you do now and any increments made will capture the rate plan that you're on for the duration of the term. So just noting that they can price lock to avoid future price increases that might come from Microsoft. The other piece here is before you go into your renewals, you'll obviously want to communicate that as part of your 30, 14, 7-day drip for communications that there will be some price increases when you renew for this new term if they're applicable. A lot of you will go through this if you're doing the annual commitments and locking in prices on some of those 6 SKUs that are going up, like Business Premium or E3 for instance. When you hit your renewal next year, they'll go up in price. You'll have to communicate that accordingly with the customer. So I know this is a lot, but I just wanted to outline some more specifics around contract terms here, just to make sure you have all this baked into various clauses you would want to include into your Microsoft Addendum for your customers before you get them onto these contracts with New Commerce. If you have any advice or any things that you've added in the past as well too, feel free to comment those below. Definitely think that there's additional consideration here as well, depending on what your strategy is with NCE and what term commitments you're leaning towards for the majority of your customers. Otherwise though, please just leave any questions or comments that you have there. I'll link the blog post as well that has all this written out so you guys can reference it and potentially use it within your contracts as well. If you guys have any other additional comments, again, leave them below or reach out to me here. Otherwise, like or subscribe if you guys want to see more content around Microsoft and the MSP space. Thanks guys, have a good day.